Welcome back to Dr. Walls and Friends. And so Dr. McCoy Deh was telling us about going to Ghana on a Fulbright scholarship. And so you're teaching over there.
Yes.
All right. So you're there for how long?
My grant is 10 months, so from August 19 to June 2020.
Okay. And you'll be teaching undergrad, graduate students?
Both. So I'm attached to the Institute of African Studies, and it's a research institute.
Yes.
Graduate programs only. However, they do deliver all of the Intro to African Studies courses for all of the undergraduates. It's required. And the particular, I teach one of those, and then I teach 2 graduate level courses, a PhD course and a master's level course.
All right.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about that because it's very interesting. I know for me, having gone over to Ghana and talking with people and noticing the difference between what we have been told about Africa via media, television, magazines, movies, and experiencing it for myself, very different. And so many people and so much history that I didn't even know existed. And vice versa, them learning about African Americans and African American history and them not having that knowledge base as well. Now this is your area. What have you found?
So that was actually, what you described was actually the premise of my application and why I needed to be there.
Okay.
So I tied in this whole idea of Ghana being the gateway to Africa, and most African Americans' maiden voyage to Africa is through Ghana. But we have this chasm. We don't really know, I'll say, our joint and disparate histories. So as you described, we didn't learn African history is not prioritized in any curricula unless it's in a graduate, some kind of degree program focused on African Africana studies. It's just not. And after the Kwame Nkrumah era, Kwame Nkrumah was the first president post-colonization of Ghana.
1959, was it?
57? 56? 50s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in that era, shortly after his, during his presidency and shortly after, they learned about African American history. So, you know, my husband is from Ghana.
Yes.
And he knew a lot of African American history. So he's the one who was able to say to me, well, my generation learned it. I know all this stuff, you know. Moving to the States and living it was something different, but I had some concept about it. But you know, before I met him, I would interact with Africans from in graduate school or just people I met, you know, befriended, and they did not know. They don't know. Likewise, I'm sitting in classes that I'm co-teaching, slave trade, Pan-Africanism, and I'm sitting in on courses where I'm a student, kind of, traditional religions and gender and culture in Africa, and they're blowing my mind.
Wow, I'm so sure.
The connections I'm able to make to Southern folk culture and just Black culture in general with the religion, like we do that. I didn't have language for that before. That's what now, you know. But even in the courses I'm teaching, I have I teach slave trade, co-teach slave trade. The faculty member, the lead faculty member for that course, told me about a conference he visited, and he was sitting in on a friend's presentation, and the friend was talking about the Underground Railroad, and he's thinking, oh, this Harriet Tubman, she was a strong woman digging those railroads. You know, he's thinking to himself. And then he realizes, he was like, I was so embarrassed, but I'm so glad I was here because now I know. And he said, how do we not know this? How do we not know this? And I said, and there's a wealth of information. There's another young woman who I met at a conference, the same conference where I met your uncle. And she was from Togo and came to Ghana for the university. And she said, I knew about slavery and I knew they took, you know, our people to America. But I thought eventually when those people died that it was over. And she said, I figured once they died, then it was, and she said, I didn't know. So we have so much to learn as well. So
so she thought it ended 400 years ago. She didn't know it lasted.
And this year of return, she was like, wait wait a minute, the math isn't working out for her. She's been like 400 years old. What's going on?
Right.
And she's like, oh, so she didn't know that it perpetuated. She didn't know there was a domestic trade. She didn't know. And then still others in South Africa, I used to travel with students, and we were with a group of students, and they were arguing with some cops in a bar. Nice that you can do that.
Yes.
And they felt like, I can argue with cops in bars, you know.
Right.
But there was this discussion about civil rights and anti-apartheid movements, and some of the people there thought that there was just legislation passed and it was over. We made a new rule. Okay, it's over. Game over. And it ended. And my students, I was proud of them because I was like, just ready to launch into the conversation.
Right.
But they were like, no, you can't. And they took this right out of my mouth. You can't legislate attitudes. I was like, yes. I was like, you were paying attention. Yes, you know. And that it wasn't just one day it's here and one day it's gone.
That's right.
And we have the 13th Amendment and 14th and 15th. But if that works so beautifully, why do we have 80 years later, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, you know, like.
Yes. Put the pieces together.
Yeah. And then after that, affirmative action, you know. So there's a lot of education to go around, and we are equally ignorant of each other. And my proposal was, I want to go and do my little slice to teach African American Studies in the Institute of African Studies. And gratefully, that contribution has been so well received and appreciated, because I'm learning there's so much backstory and dimension, and that's why to what I'm learning to complement you know, what we understand as Black culture and Black history, and then for them it's information and helps them understand the context and give context to what we're going through, what they know of what we go through. And then colorism
is real.
A student said to me after class, I have a question. I didn't want to interrupt class. I said, you can always interrupt class with a question. But he says, why do you all call Barack Obama your first Black president? Because he's not. And I was like, oh. I said, okay, you got to ask this next week. Please ask this next week. And so I had to do a mini lecture on colorism. And I had to start from like mulatto, quadroon, octroon, one drop rule, you know, the whole miscegenation,
the whole foundation.
Loving versus Virginia. You know, I had to go like, okay, lightning speed, quick. And I said, we don't care. I was like, you got it. You know, we read each other. I see it. And I said, we don't care what color you are, because we know we lost control of that a long time ago. Not that it needs to be controlled, but that's not how we gauge. And they in their identity, in the intro to African Studies, one of the big questions is, who is an African? And, you know, the professor kind of gives this lecture on this one, this one, and this one. Some of the people are white. Some of the people are North Africans. Some people are, you know, some people are Black Africans, but they're not working for Black Africans. You know? So it's like, who, you know, and
what
I don't know
African,
that's completely decided.
I would doubt that it is. That is fascinating.
I'm learning so much.
I know when I left, there was so much I wanted to read and still want to read. And I've been asking myself, like, do I do it on audio book, or do I sit down and read it and go through it? But we're going to pick back up in a minute. We're going to take a quick commercial break.